We're in a very strange political world. We're in a very strange world altogether, where people fall upwards, where people who are completely incapable suddenly land the top jobs. We see it in the NHS, we see it in teaching, we see it in policing. The people who are there to initiate investigations, to generate a document, to hold a meeting, in fact, to do anything to avoid making a decision. People who, if they were airline pilots, would be in an eternal holding position and seem to do everything to avoid landing. When it comes to politics, that is pretty well how you might describe Boris, how you might describe Brexit, how you might describe Truss, how you might describe Mrs. May, and so on. All of these people have fallen upwards. How did they get the top jobs? How did they get these jobs? Because all of them were proven to be disaster-prone before they even got to the keys of number 10. Brexit's an excellent example of how this works. We circled and circled, and even if Boris claimed to have got Brexit done, it was such a fudge in the end that no one has yet been ever able to articulate any benefits. Except possibly to satisfy the evil dreams of Suella Braverman, and even that about stopping the small boats is mostly about potential. And Suella Braverman, another example of someone who has fallen upwards, who has had disaster after disaster, who herself has fallen foul of the ministerial code. The ever-evasive approach. When you want a quotation from Suella Braverman, like McCavity, she isn't there. But unlike McCavity, she isn't actually responsible for anything. This ever-evasive approach allows for the endless accidents of leadership, the falling upwards of the disaster-prone. Cressida Dick. Now, how could Cressida Dick ever achieve top office after the disaster of the shooting of Jean-Charles Menendez? How could Liz Truss possibly achieve a top position after the Lavrov foul-up and not knowing her geography, not knowing that Rostov-on-Don was actually a Russian city and not Ukrainian? How could Boris ever achieve the top job after the lie upon lie that he was exposed of telling? And maybe you could make a case for Boris, but the others, you can't make a case for the others. Boris has charm. Cressida Dick, does she have charm? Does Liz Truss have charm? She can hardly do anything. She waves her hands like some sort of demented puppet, unstrung. And if Boris is the best that we've got of this evasive manoeuvring, then Doris, who equally seems to have fallen upwards all the time, Doris might be the worst. And of course, that means they meet in the middle, doesn't it, like any circle? Because actually Doris and Boris have got much in common. Vacuity, determined indecision, the embodiment of evasion. And if you think Boris and Doris are the example of what happens at the top, all you have to do is look into your local school, your local police force, in fact, your local hospital. It is there at every level of our society, the people who have done nothing and have got the top jobs and generate nothing in the process except for a very large, a very healthy salary. And even Farage, that man who offered so much, who delivered nothing. He endlessly promised, a sort of tease, and now he's on the telly. Boris and Truss. Oh gosh, this is even worse. Boris and Truss, having produced nothing, are now both planning their own resurrection, or at least hinting through other people that they're planning a resurrection of their political career, despite their respective disasters. And I'm sure this just goes on and on and on. These people simply do not go away, because what is celebrated in the modern Britain is evasion. Is evasion and tease. We are in a permanent state of being teased by vacuity and indecision, and being in a permanent holding position in the air, looking vaguely at the ground but admiring the clouds. At some point, we're going to run out of engine fuel. And then what will happen? We'll fall out of the sky.